In this section, we'll be adding the state change code to the game manager script. So I have my game manager script open here. So what needs to happen here is the following. So we need to make sure that when the state changes from initialization to playing, we do the necessary things that are needed for playing. So in the initialization phase, the game manager just needs to enable the menu, so it should be visible. And then when we switch to the playing state, we will disable the menu. Okay, we'll make it invisible, so we'll deactivate it. So we'll set it to false, and then we will do the generation of the rod, and then the player can play. We will also enable the player input to be collected. So first thing that we'll do is, so far we have this in our start function. So the start function has this .generate rod, which calls this function that actually creates the rod. So because we put it in the start, it means that it generates the rod the moment the game manager is loaded. So in this case, we don't want that to happen. So I'll cut this, I'll paste it somewhere else. So firstly, what we shall do in this is that we'll create a current state. So we'll say this dot current state. Okay, there's going to be a function later on that sets the current state. Okay, so right now we'll say game state dot initialize. Okay, so this is from the game states that we had. So remember, the initialize is the first state, so the current state is the initialization. So in this case, the initialization state is where the menu is going to be showing. This is where we are. So we want this menu to be showing, but we also need to make sure that when the user clicks any left or right button, the player is not playing in the background, right? So it should not be registering any input, and it shouldn't generate the rod. So then we shall create an initialization function. So just call it init. So this initialization function will set up the required characteristics. Okay, so first of all, we will check if the start menu exists. So if this dot start menu, so if start menu is true, meaning it's not now, meaning it exists, we've added it to this script. It will only be false if we didn't add it to the script. We added it to the script in the previous tutorial. Okay, so if the menu is true and not now, right? So then in that case, we will enable it. We'll say this dot start menu dot active equals true. So this enables it on the screen. Okay, so because we've set it to true, it means it will be appearing on the screen. So when the game starts, it should start with the menu being active. Okay, so it should start with this menu showing up just like we are looking at it. Then after doing that, in the initialization, we can then go on and create the runway. Okay, so we'll paste the generation. Okay, generate rod. So this generates the rod, and then we'll do something with the player. So this dot player controller, okay, so the player controller, right, the player. So in that case, we don't want the player to be able to receive any input that makes them jump. All right, so remember last time we had set this function. We disabled the input, right, for the player, and then we created a function that said set input active, and then this takes in a boolean, right, true or false. So if it receives a true, okay, then active is true. So we'll be saying if active is true, then we'll switch on the input, right? Switch on mouse event listener. Okay, if it's false, we switch off mouse event listener. So that's what's happening here. So in short, when we pass a value to the set input active function, it will either enable the mouse input or disable the mouse input. Why is that important? Because if the mouse input is on, then while the user is on the menu, they can be playing the game while the menu is still here. So we don't need that to be happening. The user should only be playing the game when the menu has gone, when we're in the playing state. Since here we're on the initialization state just shows us the menu, and so we need to make sure that the user can't play the game. So we need to disable the input. So we'll write a code to this function and then give it a value that disables the input. So this is back in the game manager. So if the player controller exists, assuming that we linked it correctly in the previous tutorial, then we'll disable. Okay, so we'll say this dot player controller. Okay, then inside the player controller, the function we're from talking about, set input active, then we shall pass in false, right? Pass in false. Remember, this receives true or false. True switches it on, false switches it off. So at this point, by writing this line, we switch off mouse input, right? Meaning we've disabled the gameplay. In short, the user can't play while the menu is showing. That's very, very important. Then we'll also reset the player, set the player position. So we'll start them off at 0. So this dot player controller dot node. So player controller, the script, and then the script's node whom it's attached to. So it's attached to the player, and then so the node in this case is the player. And then dot set position. So we're setting the position of the player, and then in this case we just need 0, 0, 0, all three of them. So we can use a vec3 dot 0. Okay, so let's see, we have this is not defining. Okay, let me see on the input here, we'll add vec3. So we add vec3. Okay, so this will take away that error. All right, so right now the only one, this one we've not yet defined it, the current state itself, right? So we'll set it up later on, but this is what needs to happen in the initialization. The rod can be generated, but the player input can't be collected, right? Okay, so then we can go on to create the current state function. So we'll say set car state So for this one, so it's expecting the game state. So it's expecting one of three states, right? The three states are expressed here: initialization, playing, and ending. So we need to define what happens, okay, depending on the state we are on. So the best way is to use either an if statement, or in this case in the tutorial they use a switch. So this can also work. So the switch statement, we can then collect the value that has been submitted. So in here we'll be submitting one of those three, right? We'll be submitting gamestate.js init, gamestate.playing, right, or gamestate.end, right? So those are the three. So those are the three possible values. So now we have to write a case for each one. So case gamestate.js init. So if this is the value, if this is the one that's supplied, then what we have to run is the function that initializes the game, right? So in that case, we'll say we'll execute the initialization. So okay, then we can break takes us out of the case. Then we can write another case. What if the game state is playing? So if game state is playing, then what should happen? So if the game state is playing, then we need to disable the menu. So when someone clicks the play button, we need to disable this menu from the screen. So we'll switch the menu off, and then we also have to switch the mouse input on, because the initialization state switches the input off. So in this case, that's what we shall do. We'll say if this dot start menu is true. So if the start menu is true, and again, it's good to write code for these nodes that we link by first of all checking if they really do exist, because of course it can work if we just go straight into writing the lines the way we're these lines like this. We can go straight into writing them like this, or like in here like this. We can go straight into doing that. But assuming you forgot, let's say you forgot to include the player controller or the start menu, it makes it much harder to debug. Okay, so this is a safer way of doing it. So we can say if this dot start menu exists, then this dot start menu dot active equals false. So this disables the start menu. So this disables the start menu. Then after the start menu is disabled, we need to be able we need to enable the mouse input, right? The mouse input. Now we can enable the mouse input, but there's a problem that we first of all need to. So there's a bit of a delay that occurs. Okay, there's a bit of a delay that occurs from the moment you switch on to the moment the mouse event is actually dispatched. So we do not want the user clicking the button and then the mouse event is not yet dispatched. So we need to create a small delay, just a little bit of a delay, so that we wait for the mouse event to be actually dispatched. So to do this, we use a set timeout function. You can use a set timeout function anytime you want to run something after some time. So for example, if in the game you need something to run after maybe a minute or maybe after 2 minutes, you can create timeouts for those. So the timeout is so it's a simple function. All we need to do is, okay, we'll create a function inside. Okay, so this like that, and then inside it we can then write what should happen. So what do we want to happen? So first of all, we'll check if this dot player controller is true. If the player controller is true, then we can go ahead and enable the input. So this enables the player controller input, right? So we'll be able to click the left or the right mouse button to move the player, but this won't run immediately. So first of all, we make sure we put a comma. So comma, the amount of time. So the time is the number in seconds. So we put 0.1 here. So that should be about 100 milliseconds or so. So this will create a delay, and this is where the delay is. So we enable a small delay, right? So this is the point of the 0.1. So if you look at the syntax of the set timeout, right? So you have the handler itself. So the handler, right? So we have our function, this function here. So this is what we want to happen, and then we have the timeout, which is the amount of time we should wait, right? So that's the idea there. Then the moment this is done, so this is still in case playing. So what we've done is playing disables the start menu, and then it enables the mouse input. And after enabling the mouse input, we can then break out of it. Okay, so when we break out, we can then write another case for game state end. So for game state end, so what we want to do, okay, for now maybe we'll leave it like this. We'll be bringing it back to the initialization. So we'll be bringing the menu back on, but for now we'll leave it at that. I think the tutorial has also gone on for a little bit longer than planned. So that's the end of the video. Please leave a comment, subscribe. Of course, you can get the official documentation from the Cocos website, so that would help if you're having challenges through this series.